A few months ago I created a video titled What Happened to Imageepoch, a nice look into the rise and fall of a promising JRPG studio. I ended that video on a sad note with their CEO Ryoei Mikage having gone missing, with no real word on where he had vanished. There were rumors that he was hired by Compile Heart and Idea Factory, but none of those were verified. There were also rumors that he was made an example of by the Yakuza, and while that could have been a real scenario, that seemed more like fiction at best. Before we move forward, let's take a moment to recap. Ryoei Mikage was a young and promising CEO of Imageepoch. However, due to many failed ventures, the company went bankrupt in 2015, and Ryoei Mikage was nowhere to be seen. It wasn't until recently where he resurfaced in an interview with 4Gamer that we can see where he has been all this time and his re-entry into the video game industry. The first signs of trouble with Imageepoch were in 2014. This is when their team had begun to work on a large-scale game that had a lot of time and resources put into it. While no details about this game are currently around, the project was cancelled, which led to putting the company into deep economic turmoil. Due to this, they forecasted that all of their games would have to sell at least 100k units for them to stay afloat, but in the current market climate, this estimate seemed impossible to keep. Even with their titles that managed to review incredibly well, they did not have the sales to back them up. Imageepoch also had ventures outside of game development, but these also fell through. While their first signs of trouble did not spark until 2014, Ryoei Mikage saw the writing on the wall as early as fall of 2013. At this time, he considered moving the team's direction into the Mobage style of games to stay afloat, better known here as mobile games. This is a common strategy for smaller studios to keep earning revenue while they're under financial distress. Sadly, this is not a feasible option. Imageepoch's employee numbers were about 100 strong. There was no way he could instruct a team that big to work on a single Mobage project to make ends meet. Ryoei Mikage described the situation Imageepoch was in as 10 people riding a sinking boat. If he was to throw 7 of them off, the boat would survive. Instead of laying people off for the boat to survive, he decided to let it sink. He stayed on the sinking ship like a true captain. Mikage-san had managed to secure payments for most of Imageepoch staff members, making sure that they managed to be at least paid for the stuff they were working on. Sadly, freelancers who worked at the company were not as fortunate at the start, although Mikage-san still tried his best to make sure everyone got paid. After the official bankruptcy of Imageepoch, Mikage-san had completely left the video game industry and entered a state of spiraling depression. For about 3 months after the bankruptcy, he holed himself up in his home with the simple objective in mind: try not to die. Up until Imageepoch's bankruptcy, Mikage-san spent the majority of his time apologizing to staff members for the company's impending collapse. After the collapse happened, he would often spend days at a time lying motionless in bed. He saw no need to interact with people at that time, thus causing the confusion as to where his whereabouts were to other people in the industry. During this time, Mikage-san contemplated on returning to work as a truck driver or some other form of heavy labor work to give his life some meaning, even though he had enough money in theory to live on. However, all of this changed when the CEO of Libres, a company that had worked with Imageepoch before, felt great concern over Mikage-san's well-being. They offered him a job there, basically telling him he wasn't doing anything else of his life and that the fresh air would do him good. It turns out the game that they were working on was a bid to make a game adaptation of an anime that he loved. He owned the complete Blu-ray set, all of the light novels, and as much merchandise for it as you can possibly imagine. His love for it must have bled through into his work because his team was chosen to make the game. His only condition for making these games was that his name would not appear on any of it, so this is why we don't know which anime it was. So while the rest of the world wondered what had happened to him, he was slowly emerging back into the industry behind the scenes. He wanted to just make a living doing this, and not to officially return to the industry he left in disgrace. Mikage-san was honestly surprised by the kindness of the CEO of Libres for his well-being after Imageepoch's closure. Even though he said he no longer had enough money to create any games or a real drive to, his friends at the company all offered to chip in and help make games with him. Currently, he's working on a new web-based game similar to the other mobile games that he worked on when he was still in the dark. It is unknown if he has any more ambition to once again return to the home console market and go back to making JRPGs, but honestly, I'm just glad the story had a happy ending. This whole situation is honestly really bizarre. As you can recall, numerous people tried to make contact with Mikage-san, including Idea Factory, to no luck, only for him to secretly return to the video game industry after a journey of self-discovery. I swear there's a video game to be made out of all of this, mark my words. If he goes back into JRPGs, he'll base a game around his life experiences. But hey, that'll do it for today's video. I would like to thank all of my patrons on Patreon for helping make today's commentary possible. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Also, shout out to Elliot on Twitter for translating the 4Gamer interview that Mikage-san did. Go give him a follow. If you're discovering my channel for the first time through this video, hey, be sure to subscribe for future reviews, commentaries, let's plays, and more. And as always everyone, thanks for watching.